Okay, I think we'll get started. It's just after 12:30, so thank you everybody for joining this session this afternoon. Thanks for taking the time out of your diary to join us. This is another webinar hosted by the Together and Active Future Leadership Learning Series. So welcome today. It'll be about an hour-long session, which is being recorded so that you can listen again, or if you want to share some info on with your colleagues, I will be sharing links for the resources after the session. So yeah, I'll now hand you over to Beth. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Leanne. Hi, everybody, and welcome today. So I will just share my presentation with you now. Share my screen. Okay. So hopefully you can all see that. So yes, as I say, welcome. I'm Beth Kay, and I'm lucky enough to have two hats. So I work for the Active Partnership. I work for Active Lancashire, and I have done for the last 18 years in training and development roles. And then 18 months ago, I was fortunate to gain a secondment with the Together and Active Future team, to work with the leadership team there on developing the leadership programme. And one of the elements of the leadership programme is strengths coaching, and a strengths-based approach. And more recently, over the last few months, I've been taking a lead on that work stream. So really pleased today to be able to share with you everything that we've picked up over the last 18 months. And these are the webinar outcomes for today. So for those that are less familiar, we will be going through the key insights to a strengths-based approach to give you a bit of a background around that. And then more recently, we have looked into developing a recommended delivery model for a strengths-based approach, which has 4 key kind of focus areas within that, which I will talk through. And finally, just some bringing our kind of work to life, really, and showcasing some amazing successes from our partners, again, that we've been working with over that time period as well. Okay. So just before we move on, we'd love for you to consider a couple of questions today. So what was it that made you join us and register for the strengths session? And what's your experience been so far? So I appreciate looking at who had registered for the session. We've got a real mix of people that have some experience with it, but those that are less familiar to us as well. So it would be really useful to kind of share that and see who we've got in the room. So Leanne, if you are able to break us out just for 5 minutes, just to explore those couple of questions and know who's on the call, that would be great. I'll hopefully you found that useful just to connect with others. Okay. That's great. Okay, so so kind of to start things off, it's obviously important to identify where this has come from originally for Together and Active Future. So central to our model for change, based on our early Pathfinder phase many years ago, we identified the notion that changing people's behaviours in the system is key to actually changing the system at systems level and place level, to get people active. So part of that is leadership skills and capabilities are very much at the heart of that. And so we identified that the Clifton Strengths tool and the strengths-based approach is a way that can be achieved. So we have been working with a world-renowned company, research company called Gallup, to roll out the Clifton Strengths tool. And what that is that it is an assessment tool to identify the strengths of individuals, so that they can understand themselves better, and then they can use it purposely in their work and personal life. So, and particularly for me, I've seen the benefits of that firsthand, by understanding my own kind of strengths, that I've then been able to use that to navigate through situations in work, and personal life as well. It just gives you a real understanding of who you are and what you're great at, and almost honing that into your work. And we'll show you some examples later on of how organisation level and individual level that's played out as well. So what we've found so far is that, again, working through Gallup, is that they've identified that if an individual is working in their strengths, like, for example, what I've mentioned just before, you would be able to carry out your job. You'd be happier and more engaged in your job. You're therefore more likely to be more true to yourself as a leader, and more authentic. Your creativity is heightened as well. You're more innovative, and you're more open to collaboration with others, and connections with others. And those are almost the three areas which Gallup identifies as the benefits of working in with a strengths-based approach. And so we've been doing a lot of work at Together an Active Future around systems leadership. And so what's been really interesting is that we've overlaid the strengths-based approach with the key enablers that we've identified. So these are enablers of change. These are things that need to be in place in order for change to happen. And what we've seen across we've got 40 plus work streams at Together an Active Future. So what we've seen across them all is some real common kind of denominators, which are on your left-hand side. So looking at brave leadership, doing things differently, relationship building and connecting. And so when we've overlapped that with the strengths work, you can definitely see a correlation there of where strengths almost and systems meet. And that's really providing the added value to all our work through that. And I guess just going back to the earlier slide, looking at the investment in individuals and people having the impact to change the system, is that it just emphasizes the individual nature of it, in terms of the people are the asset, and by working through a strengths-based approach, you're more likely to create that change. So what we've achieved so far, this is just a kind of a snapshot really of what we've looked at over the last 18 months. And we've had 4 components of the model. So you can see on your left there, one component of the strengths-based approach is undertaking the assessment itself, which is kind of a half an hour process, 120 questions, to provide you with a report of 34 strengths in order of dominance for you. So we've had close to 900 people undertaking that assessment. So just that assessment alone is obviously providing a real opportunity for people to understand themselves better and use it as a way of CPD for them as well. We've also been offering one-to-one coaching. So we've been offering some individual coaching hours to people across Pennine, Lancashire, and wider. So that has been either internally led through a number of the TAF team, or it's been through a Gallup certified strengths coach. And again, we are close to 400 mark for that, and we've got plans for the next 12 months to try and get that up to near to the 700 hours mark. And then another element of it is training up the coaches, and we very much see this at the heart of that sustainability model. So if we are looking at embedding a strengths-based approach, you need people in the organisation who understand it and are able to speak the language, I guess, and really work with individuals and develop them to understand themselves better and work through situations in a strengths-based way. So we've been delivering internal strengths courses over the last 18 months, and 92 people have gone through those courses, and we're looking at almost doubling those for the next 12 months. We've got 4 courses for next year. And through that, we've had over 20 organisations come through. So you can almost do the quick maths of people are putting a number of their staff through this in order to have that almost network of individuals in the organisation who can help sustain and embed it. And what we've also been running alongside that is some alumni network sessions for those coaches to further support them. So they don't just come on the 3-day coaching course, they've then got support thereafter from TAF and also other peers that are on the training. And the final element of the delivery across the strengths approach has been team sessions. And this has been so we've talked a lot about it, about empowerment from an individual side of things, but we've seen real impact from those team sessions that we've been having with organisations who I'll show you in a second, because that is the conversations that they're having within the team sessions. They're able to understand each other better, and they're almost able to progress the working relationship as a team. So we've had a really positive response to that. And across all of this work, we are always gathering insight, like I say, from an individual and also a collective perspective as well. And what we're seeing is that largely we are really building the confidence of individuals and their behaviours. But if you think about almost that onion diagram of a system and where we're having the impact, we're also seeing impact from a social angle in terms of peers and families, but we're also seeing it from an organisational perspective as well. So it's great to see that those kind of layers are being impacted by this work. So this just gives you a snapshot of the organisations we've been working with over the last 18 months. And you can see on there, we've got a real breadth of organisations, from whether it be leisure trusts, governing bodies, health, voluntary sector, obviously including the active partnership, education colleagues and local authorities. So it's been a real mix of organisations that we've been working alongside. So taking it on a next step then, obviously you've understood what we've done so far. So from all our work to date, we've started to put that learning into practice and start to identify 4 areas where it can really make a difference to sustaining and embedding a strengths-based approach. So the first area is embedding it through almost an informal way of working. And what that looks like is through strengths conversations within the teams. That might be, like I said, an informal level with colleagues, or it might be through team meetings that have been organised. So at Active Lancashire, one thing that we are doing with this approach is that for every team meeting we're holding with staff, and this is virtual, we are highlighting and spotlighting one of the strengths, and we're able to show a 1-minute kind of summary video of that, and then invite colleagues who have that within their top 5, top 10 to explore what that looks like for them. Because the real benefit of Clifton Strengths is that it's very nuanced to individuals. So it's not something which one person's strengths might look different to somebody else's. Then in terms of the more formal settings, things like using strengths as incorporating it into onboarding. So we've seen that at Blackburn with Darwen Council. They've developed an in-house training package now for some of their team, so that when staff are onboarded, there are staff available to talk to them about Clifton Strengths and undertake the assessment, and almost have that coaching as well. We've seen at Blackpool Football Club, they have been incorporating it into their appraisal process, so that it's being talked about in that more kind of formal setting. And Youth Sport Trust have almost taken it to the next stage of the appraisal process, where we're looking at future objective settings. They've started to incorporate strengths to align someone's strengths to their objective, so they can see the meaning and the value of their work based on actually what they're really good at. So from a culture and comms perspective, that could look like incorporating it into email footers, which is something that we have done at Active Lancashire. And quite interesting, we've had a situation where someone from Australia has emailed in a colleague and seen it as part of their email footer, and that's almost created a bit of a conversation and a common language between them. So I guess you never know the reach that something so simple like that and doesn't cost anything could have to that. Other elements that could look like visuals in the office, or if there's a staff intranet, for example, just some ways of embedding it into everyday things that the organisation has access to, whether that's within a building or whether that's across emails and websites and things. And the last approach to help embed it is looking more at a strategic approach, which you'll see come out of some of the examples that we'll go into. One thing that Lancashire FA, another partner of ours, they're now looking at providing a report, a top 5 report, so a shorter report, but for their board members, because they very much see that it's an organisational wide piece of work. So they want their board members to be involved and really kind of incorporate this piece of work into the level at a strategic point of view. And we've also seen a partner of Active Wirral. They're looking at embedding this within their strategic delivery plans moving forward as well, and taking it from that lens. So I guess it's almost the buy-in really at a senior level and a board level in terms of that approach. Okay, so we're just going to take 5 minutes now. We're just going to take a breath. I appreciate that I've given you a lot of information there in terms of the background to it, where we've got up to, and how it can embed within an organisation. So we're just going to go into another quick breakout group, 5 minutes again, just to reflect on what's been said so far. What are your thoughts on that? How's it resonated for you? And also your organisation, is this something which you're interested in, and how can that benefit your organisation? So just a couple of questions into breakout rooms again, Leanne.
Yeah.
So they may be the same, they might be different. I think Leanne's having to do it manually. So if we could just spend 5 minutes, pick up on that. Great. Thanks, Leanne.
No problems.
Yeah. So moving on. Share my screen. Okay. So we have lots of examples of how strengths has benefited organisations, but we're just going to take a bit of a deeper dive into 2 of them for this webinar. So one being Blackpool with Darwen Council. So where this originated from with them is that a member of the TAF team who's actually on the call today, Heath, so you can pitch in if you want at any point. Heath met with the Director of Public Health into a meeting. So he was invited to chat with them after he'd seen some of this work to understand it a little bit better. And what was agreed is that TAF were going to look at providing assessments for the senior leaders across 9 departments within the council. And that was taken to the workforce development team within the council, and they then put that forward to the leadership forum, who agreed to cover the remaining costs so that all managers across the council, of which there's 448, because it's one of the largest councils that we have in Lancashire, can undertake the assessment. And what happened after that is that the momentum and the positive feedback that was happening from these managers undertaking the assessment and receiving some coaching was that there was more interest in this piece of work. So as a council, they have had 25 coaches upskilled. So that's they've come onto the TAF coaching course, but also they've been running in-house training to upskill more coaches because of, like I've said, the demand that they're experiencing. And also, I guess, as a ripple of all of this is that TAF were invited to present at their leadership conference, that they have quite a large leadership conference every year. And so a ripple of that is that then it was picked up by a member of the Northwest Collaborative to look at the approach being disseminated across the ICB and the public health teams across Lancashire and South Cumbria. So actually on Thursday this week, we're delivering a team session to the population health leads of the ICB because of the kind of the work that has been happening across Blackburn with Darwen. So when they're looking at the goals originally, what Blackburn with Darwen wanted to achieve through that was they wanted to recognise and utilise the strengths of the leaders that they have in order to boost performance and have a positive impact on well-being and satisfaction within the council. And one thing that they had found before the strengths kind of intervention was that there was, I suppose, a bit of lack of awareness around or acceptance of people working in different ways. So they wanted to use this tool as a way of having a greater understanding that everybody is different and the reasons why people work in a different way in order to get to the same goal. So that kind of understanding that the kind of diverse work approaches was really important to them as well. And they saw it as a nice piece for that collaboration across departments. And the feedback that we've had since is that they really enjoy talking about strengths and having a conversation which is about something positive, because generally we are, I guess, quite a deficit orientated kind of country, aren't we, in terms of the appraisal processes, you know, things that we can always be improving on. By having that real positive shift and a positive approach and a strengths-based approach to work was really refreshing for the employees, particularly within the council that they've worked with so far. So they've seen that, they've seen it's really revitalised some support for leadership development because they weren't investing in that, whereas they found a tool for them that they are committed to investing in quite, you know, a large amount into to support the leadership teams and their teams ultimately as well. But they have had challenges. So the demand from the staff has almost outweighed the capacity that they're able to get through either the coaching or the team sessions, and also the resources financially as well to roll out, you know, the assessments. And they have found that there are not everybody has welcomed it. Yes, there's been a real positive approach, but there has been that kind of mix acceptance. But what they found is that where that is the case, it's the team culture piece and the team dynamics work that's really where those that are possibly more on the fence have been able to get on board with it, because maybe they see it at the minute less from an individual development point of view, but they're seeing the team culture and the as almost prioritized, really. They've seen, you know, renewed confidence and motivation amongst staff. They've had a lot of really powerful kind of individual stories. They've had individuals who were looking to leave the organisation suddenly become more motivated and more positive about their work. It's also helped some individuals understand their next career move as well, because they know what their strengths are and where those sort of roles are, and whether that's with career moves within the council or outside of. They've also seen individuals use it to align them to their work better. So, you know, I talked about the Youth Sport Trust before and that objective setting. That has really helped individuals understand how their strengths align to their work, so they have more value and they have more productivity within their work by that. And they've also seen there's a tool on through the Gallup resources called Powerful Partnerships, which is about comparing one person's strengths to another to see how they align. And I think we're in situations where line managers were unable to work progressively with their staff, they found that this Powerful Partnerships tool has been a really useful resource to help those conversations be a bit more positive and progressive. So they've had lots of great impact from an individual point of view, and where they've seen it from a team perspective is they've used it where teams are new and they have new projects and they're bringing people together. They've seen it work really well at those early stages to help progress the work quicker, because they're analysing their team and analysing the strengths and where and assigning roles to that piece of work from the very beginning. But they've also seen it in more established teams where possibly morale is quite low, and there's a real disconnect in that team. It's been a real way of bringing that team together and them collaborating much stronger than they were before. So they're really pleased with it. They've got future plans to continue to roll out the programme. So you can see where they've almost aligned it to those 4 areas we were talking about before. They want to continue, so the success stories that we've seen, they're looking at sharing those wider, and I guess to help bring on board those that maybe are sitting on the fence with those stories as well. And they're looking at seeking additional resources to support the growing demand for coaching, so rolling out more, having the availability of coaching time from staff, and that team development piece as well, which we've talked about. So yeah, so that they've really seen the benefit of strengths, and it, you know, it's quite complex from a large organization perspective to really embed that culture, but they seem to have done that really well up until that stage. And it has taken them 18 months to get to this position as well. So yeah, they've done really well. So another spotlight for us is Burnley Football Club in the community, who we've been working with for the last 12 months or so. Again, a meeting took place between the chief exec, who'd seen some literature on this to understand that a little bit more. Where we'd talked before about the overall leadership programme that we're involved in at TAF. One of the other strands of that is an exec leaders academy. And this is for senior leaders to work with us over the course of 9 months to understand and embed a systems leadership approach to it. And one element of that, as you would imagine, has been strengths coaching. So Burnley Football Club have had 3 leaders go through that. So they've had their deputy, their director of football, and their HR manager go through the exec leaders course and that strengths coaching. So they've experienced that from a senior level, and with the HR manager being part of that, she was able to identify the potential for this across the whole organisation. So they've put a further 3 people through the strengths coaching course. So they've got 4 people within their team. They're a team of about 70 staff. And what they did initially was to look at to audit the organisation, the processes, from a very much a holistic point of view, to see where strengths could be embedded. So they have now embedded it into the onboarding, the team sessions. They're delivering coaching. They've done all their coaching in-house through the 4 staff, because they've enabled time for the 4 coaches to be able to deliver that within their working time. And they're also using as an objective setting for the team. And that's right from those manager level all the way through to outreach staff that are in the community. Everybody's kind of involved with that. So they again have seen it very much, they were looking at it from an individual and team kind of self-exploration, and also the impact of strengths on teams as well, and how that can play out, and what that can do for the teams. Because again, although they're a team of 70, they certainly have kind of departments as well. So they were looking at it, how can we strengthen the departments within the organisation. And again, similar to Blackburn with Darwin, they've also seen some kind of reluctance from staff, not understanding how it fits, or it being seen as another kind of tick box HR activity. But once they've actually undertaken the assessments and they've seen the positivity from their team as well, and viewed it through that team, what it can do from a team dynamics lens, they have received some really, they've managed to get them on board. Oh, sorry, I think someone's off mute, Leon. I think, thank you. So in terms of their future plans, they're looking at it from more of a practical kind of development. So looking at embedding it and managing it in-house, and they are looking at incorporating within team charters based on kind of strength standards. So looking at it from a very much an organizational development point of view, from that kind of strategic angle. Continuing to offer individual coaching to everybody, and also embedding it within the team sessions and their away days. So they tend to run quarterly team sessions with each department, so they've been including it within that, but they're also going to look at away days as well. So that's it from kind of a deep dive into a couple of organisations, but we've also seen the ripples at individual level as well. And again, going back to one of the first slides that I showed you in terms of that change in behaviours of people in order to impact on the system and have that system change. We've seen a real range of really success stories across the board, from promotions to it also being used to tackle performance management as well, and seeing it as that step before any of the formal disciplinary procedures take on, having those conversations and making it less awkward to have those kind of performance management conversations by using the strengths tool as a way of looking into that, and whether that is a powerful partnerships point of view, or whether it's looking at, because within strengths you have a description of what your strengths looks like to you, but also what's classed as blind spots, which is things to kind of be aware of or look out for, which is generic across all of the strengths, but those are particularly useful in terms of those performance management conversations. So I'm just going to, again, just take a bit of a pause there before I'll just bring it back through. So that's really a summary of the journey that we've been on from the start of this, the organisations that we've been working with, the approach that we've taken in terms of not just about it being coaching, but being more of conversations and the team dynamic stuff to it as well. and the kind of the learnings, the key nuggets that we've got from it, which I'll summarize. But I just wanted to, before we kind of look at kind of the summary side of things, just wanted to see if there was any questions so far from any of you in terms of this work. I've seen Maria pop something in the chat, which is great. But just wondering if there was any questions which anyone had before I just wrap up. Nope. That's fine. If there is anything, obviously just pop it in the chat, or can speak to me after, not a problem. Okie dokes. So in terms of the summary of the learning so far, that what we've seen is across kind of 6 areas really. So using a strengths-based approach has been really refreshing for individuals and very unique and welcomed, I guess, because it's not like I've said, it's not something which you normally get when you're joining an organisation or you've been part of it as part of that CPD process. So it's really helping individuals to feel motivated and valued, and a valued member of the team, because to see what contribution they're making to their work and the organisation. We've seen a real impact into team cultures and a positive impact, and bringing teams together and understanding the uniquenesses of what everybody is bringing to that team as well. Like I've said before, in terms of that common language, it's the ripples really of that. So with the, Clifton Strengths is a global tool, and there have been over, I think it's 34 million people complete an assessment. So there's lots of organisations out there who are aware of that or interested in it. So it's almost to say it's the ripples can be never ending really in that, and can create new conversations with organisations that I guess you're less familiar with. It's also impacted on systems change. That slide that I showed you before with the enablers for change that we've identified, and the correlation that has with a strengths-based approach in terms of that those connections and the innovation. There's a real connection between the systems leadership approach and a strengths-based approach, which is obviously why we've heavily invested time and resources into that. What's kind of been quite clear, particularly in the examples which we've given, but also in other examples as well, is that senior buy-in. It does make the boat go quicker, I guess, with having that from the very off, but we've also seen it in organisations where that hasn't been, and the buy-ins actually come from an individual point of view, not necessarily a manager point of view. But what we're finding is that in situations where there isn't the senior buy-in from the start, we found that piloting some of this work initially to gain that evidence base has been really useful to then start and almost gain those positive feedback from team members to feed into senior managers, has actually worked that way around as well. So I guess it's just where they always say go where the energy is, or find people who are interested in this and build up from there. And as you would imagine with this, as you've seen, every organisation is at a different phase in this approach, whether they've been working on this for 18 months or even in the last few months. No organisation's the same, so we couldn't give a linear approach to people to start with coaching and then go on to the assessments or then team dynamics. It really just depends on where that organisation is at and what existing resources and assets the organisation's got already. So it just is having that conversation of where the organisation's at, what do they want to achieve from this, and look at where the best kind of starting point is really, and just to be flexible and adaptable as you go, is something that we've picked up on that seems to work for that. So so that's it from me really. Is there anything which anyone would like to pick up on? We've got a few minutes before the end of the webinar, the end of the hour. If anyone's got anything which they'd let's pick up. Kelly, yeah.
Thanks, Beth. Just while you've been talking, I've just been having a little look at the Clifton Strengths tool, and so as I've seen online, and correct me if I'm wrong, is an online assessment that people are completing and then the results come back, or how have you done it where you are?
Yeah, so because we've put a lot of resources into it, so we've bought a platform from Gallup. So that means that we have control over seeing everybody's report. So again, different organisations, some don't have that and some have invested in it. So it's about £3,000 for the platform in order to do that. But in terms of the sustainability for other organisations, we wouldn't expect that to pay for that. So we've got an alternative tool for them. But so we've invested in the platform, and then we've bought codes which allows the assessments to take place in bulk. So we've bought a series of codes, which then we're working with partners, and then we distribute those codes. So individuals, so if it was like yourself, you get a code through your email account, and then you redeem that code, undertake the assessment, and then you get your report automatically, actually. So you get access to that. So then whoever would be distributing the code also gets access to that. So if that makes sense. So,
yeah, it does, because it's like
£60
to buy online otherwise, isn't it?
Well, it is, and so yeah, so it's £60 for a 34 report, so that's your full report. You can, like I mentioned before, there is a top 5 report, so you can purchase that, and that's £25. So that gives you your top 5 strengths and a bit of a description behind that as well. And you can upgrade, you know, if you did that and then decided you wanted the full version, you can upgrade to it and you wouldn't have to take the assessment again. But yeah, it is that. But if you think about a person's CPD, that in itself, at just £60, they haven't gone on a course, they've undertaken that to understand the strengths, is kind of sometimes a lot more powerful than going on a training. So I guess particularly for, you know, the organisations we've been working with, they're now starting to pick up some of those costs and are more than happy to do that, because they're just seeing the benefit with individuals rather than you know, an alternative kind of training option. So yes, you can look at it from an organisation point of view in a platform and then buy the codes, or you can just do that individually as well. Gallup do have resources, so they have lots and lots of resources on the website. And actually, if you buy a book from them, they always throw in a free code within the book. So that's been quite useful for partners to receive when they're receiving the book. They can give that to a colleague, or sometimes people have given it to a spouse as well, which has been quite interesting. A bit of marriage counselling going on there, I think. So yeah. So that's how we do it.
Thanks, Bev.
No, thanks, Kelly. Any other questions?
I just have one more, if that's all right.
All right, yeah. The floor is yours.
Yeah, and this is all really interesting, because, you know, in the world that we work within, which is predominantly about relationships, and, you know, we've got to be able to build and form relationships with the wider sector. But we also have to demonstrate the impact and look at how we are increasing physical activity and movement within our communities as well, because, you know, ultimately that's kind of our end goal. So how are you seeing that kind of transcribing from, you know, looking at a person's strength, the team's strength, and then really, you know, how is that impacting on sort of that wider community in terms of movement and physical activity?
Yeah, so what we've started to incorporate within our coaching sessions is, so within the first coaching session they would have, it's about the experience of it and has it, you know, built confidence, etc. But then, and your first coaching session's almost starting to understand the language of the strengths and understanding how that, examples of what that means to you in your workplace and how you've examples that you might have come across. Within the almost the second coaching session really is where you start to bring that to life more and start what they would class as aiming it towards a certain situation. So it might be that you want to use your strengths to create a more collaborative team. So then you would look at, right, within the coaching session, what that look like. What we're now asking individuals to do is to go, what is your action off the back, almost holding people to account. So after the coaching session, what is your action for change within the physical activity sector, and where do you think that fits within the system? So, you know, when I talked about before that we're really seeing, so from that onion diagram, if you know what I mean, from that system lens, where are you seeing the impact? And a lot of the stories are coming through to say, from an individual point of view, I'm seeing a real, from my own point of view, I feel more empowered and more confident in my role within the sector. So it's not that, so we're starting to get an idea of the type of actions that they go. So we're starting to get an understanding of the different actions of the different partners that we're working with, what their role is within that, how they're going to use strengths for that, and then also as part of this, where in the system is that having an impact and how confident do they feel with doing that. So that's where we're starting to, so we're only a couple of months into that, but once we start to build a better picture of that, we'll be able to share that in terms of the impact that it's having on our sector, to then, you know, to then be able to feed that back up to Sport England, for example, to say, actually, through a strengths-based approach, this is exactly the impact that it's making within our sector, because Gallup is cross-sector, but for us it's really important to understand where that fits for us. So we're not there yet, but the early indications are that it's more of an individual empowerment tool for people who are working in the sector to carry out their role kind of more effectively, really, in whatever guise that is, whether that's in hands-on delivery or more strategic planning or even marketing, for example. Yeah, we're seeing it across lots of different roles. But great question.
Beth.
Thank you. Thanks, Leanne.
Okay,
That's great.
Thank you so much, Beth. That was wonderful. Lots of information shared. Hope everybody enjoyed it. What I'll do over the next couple of days is send out the presentation slides and also a copy of this recording. So if you wish to share it or listen again, that will become available in the next couple of days. But thank you, everybody, for attending today. Much appreciated. And thanks so much, Beth. Really enjoyed that.
I've just popped the link for feedback in the chat, if that's okay. So if anyone's got a spare minute that would be able to feedback, that would be really great. And Leanne, if you can add that into the follow-up email as well, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And if anyone, and Leanne can share my contact details as well. So if anyone wants to follow up, then by all means.
Yeah, I shall put all that together and send it out.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.